My name is Mason Cole. I'm 29 years old, and last night was supposed to be my birthday dinner. Instead, it became a public execution dressed up in candlelight and champagne. Sabrina lifted her glass, her smile all teeth and glitter. "Consider this my gift," she said. "I'm done." The table laughed, not sure if it was a joke, until she walked out with her boss. The candle kept burning while everyone stared at me. The man left to pay the $340 check. But what they didn't know was, I'd already started keeping receipts. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, because what happened that night wasn't just heartbreak, it was a lesson in how far people will go to protect their image, even if it means destroying yours. I didn't grow up around people who wore suits or used phrases like equity options. My world was the smell of motor oil and coffee that had been reheated one too many times. My dad was a mechanic who could fix anything with a wrench and patience. My mom worked the register at a local pharmacy, her fingers always ink-stained from counting bills. We lived in a small house with peeling paint and a front porch that creaked every time someone walked across it. I used to think that creak was the sound of home. Warm, imperfect, real. That was my world before Sabrina Hale walked into it. I met her at a volunteer event, some community lighting project where her company had donated banners, and I was there installing the wiring. She wore a red coat, expensive looking, out of place under the streetlights we were hanging. When she asked if I needed help holding the ladder, I remember laughing, telling her, "Not unless you want to risk those heels." She smiled. That kind of easy, practice smile people in her world learn young. But it didn't feel fake. Not then. Back then, she liked that I was different. She'd text me pictures of her office lunch plates and call me on her breaks, saying, "You make me feel grounded." She'd show up at job sites with iced coffee, the kind with too much caramel syrup, and hand it to me like it was a peace offering between two planets. My coworkers teased me, city girl slumming it with a blue-collar hero. I didn't care. She made me feel seen. One night, she said, "You're the only person who doesn't make me feel like I have to perform." I didn't know it back then, but that line would come back to haunt me. The first crack showed about a year into our relationship. She'd gotten a promotion at her marketing firm, Vesper and Lane, and started coming home later, her perfume sharper, her laughter shorter. She began talking about her network the way I talked about wiring circuits, with precision and pride. I didn't mind at first. I was proud of her. But little things changed. She stopped calling my hands strong and started calling them rough. When we went out with her coworkers, she'd joke, "Don't mind Mason. He still believes in cash tips." Everyone would laugh, and I'd laugh too. Because that's what you do when you're the outsider, trying not to make things awkward. I remember one night, sitting in her apartment, watching her rehearse a presentation in front of the mirror. She spoke like she was on stage, her reflection nodding in approval. I said, half joking, "You practice talking to yourself now?" She smiled without looking at me. "No, I'm practicing how people see me." Something in the way she said people made my chest tighten, like I was no longer part of that category. She started spending weekends at retreats. Once, she said it was at a resort an hour away. She even sent me a blurry picture of a lake at sunset. But later that night, one of her coworkers posted a photo at a rooftop bar downtown. Same dress, same earrings, same smile. When I asked her about it, she said, "Oh, that? That was just the after party. You're overanalyzing again." That phrase, "you're overanalyzing," became her shield. Every time I questioned something, she'd pull it out, polished and sharp. Still, I stayed. Maybe because I believed love meant endurance. Maybe because I thought people drift and then find their way back. My dad always said, "A relationship's like wiring loose connections cause sparks." I thought I could fix it. Then came the small humiliations. At her company's holiday dinner, she introduced me not as her boyfriend but as Mason, the guy I told you about, the electrician. When someone asked if I had my own business, she laughed. "He's more hands-on than corporate." Everyone chuckled politely, and I smiled while my stomach burned. Later that night, she whispered, "Don't take it personally. They just don't get your world." But she didn't defend me either. I didn't realize it at the time, but she had already started rewriting our story, turning it from us into her and the person she outgrew. One Sunday, I dropped by her apartment unannounced. I wanted to surprise her with takeout and her favorite coffee. She wasn't home. but the scent of cologne, not mine, lingered. On her counter sat 2 glasses of wine, half finished, and a tie draped over a chair. My chest went cold. When she came home hours later, she acted surprised to see me. "I told you I had a late meeting." "Who leaves a meeting with a tie on their chair?" I asked quietly. She didn't miss a beat. "You're being paranoid." Then, she walked past me to pour herself another drink. I should have walked out that night. But I didn't. I told myself maybe I'd misread it. Maybe it was nothing. Because when you love someone, you build excuses faster than they can break trust. That week, my buddy Luke pulled me aside at the diner. "She's not the same, man. You're fighting for a version of her that doesn't exist anymore." I stared at my coffee. "I just need to understand what changed." Luke sighed. "She changed who she's standing next to. That's all." I laughed it off then, but it hit deeper than I wanted to admit. Still, for a while, we coasted. She'd text late at night, small things memes, old pictures like she was throwing crumbs of the girl I used to know. I'd pick them up every time. I didn't know that while I was clinging to pieces, she was already planning her next act. The week before my birthday, she called me while I was on a ladder at a job site. "Hey, babe," she said, bright and breezy. "Don't make plans for Friday. I've got something classy lined up." "Classy?" I laughed. "You mean expensive." "You'll love it," she promised. "It's time we celebrated, right?" I believed her. I didn't know that she meant celebrate the way some people mean bury. I didn't see it then, but every detail she picked: the guest list, the restaurant, even that overpriced bottle of wine wasn't about me at all. It was about staging her exit perfectly. And that's where it all started to unravel. The Friday of that dinner, I remember standing in front of my bathroom mirror, trying to convince myself I belonged in the kind of place where waiters wore gloves. My shirt was new, freshly ironed, but my hands still looked like they belonged to someone who spent his life twisting wires. The skin along my knuckles was permanently rough. No matter how much lotion I used, I caught my reflection tired eyes. A decent man trying too hard, and I whispered to myself, "It's your birthday. Just breathe." When I got to Arcadia, the air already smelled like money-faint truffle oil, wine corks, perfume that cost more than my monthly electric bill. The hostess led me to a long marble table glowing under golden light. Sabrina was already there, radiant, surrounded by 8 of her coworkers. They were dressed like a magazine ad. Polished suits, silk blouses, smiles that didn't reach their eyes. She waved me over with that PR smile. "Everyone, this is Mason, the birthday boy. Not my boyfriend. Not even Mason, my partner. Just the birthday boy." Someone, a tall guy with slicked hair I'd learn later, his name was Adrian, said, "Ah, the man of the hour. We were just talking about the new Tesla model." I smiled politely. "Can't say I know much about Teslas. I fix things when they stop running." He chuckled, like that was quaint. "Blue collar. Nice. Keeps you grounded." The table laughed softly. I laughed too. Naomi, one of the few I'd met before, leaned in. "You clean up well, Mason." Her tone was kind, but the way her eyes flicked toward Sabrina told me she felt sorry for me. Dinner rolled on. Sabrina showed off a bottle of wine she'd pre-ordered. "You can't even buy this here," she said proudly. "It's from a client connection." The waiter nodded reverently. "Excellent choice, Miss Hale." Later, I'd find out that same bottle had come from a contra list, a kind of marketing loophole gift. Not for personal use. But that night, all I knew was that it tasted like something too fine for my tongue. The conversation spun around the table. IPO rumors, crypto portfolios, destination weddings. Whenever I spoke, the noise dimmed politely, then surged back once I stopped. Sabrina laughed at jokes she didn't understand, touching Adrian's wrist when she did. I excused myself halfway through to wash my hands. In the mirror of the Arcadia restroom, I stared at my reflection under soft amber light. My tie looked perfect, but I didn't recognize the man wearing it. My chest tightened. "You don't belong here," a voice whispered. I ran cold water over my wrists until my pulse steadied. When I came back, Sabrina was leaning closer to Adrian, her laughter cutting through the hum of the restaurant. When she saw me, she smiled like she was greeting an intern. "There he is." That was the moment I knew something was coming. I just didn't know how sharp it would be. When dessert arrived, the waiter set down a small cake, gold flakes catching the candlelight. I didn't even get to make a wish. Sabrina raised her glass. "Here's to growth," she said, voice bright and brittle, and to knowing when to move on. Laughter. Then silence. Someone muttered, "Wait, what?" But Sabrina turned to me, her smile never breaking. "You're a great guy, Mason. Really. But we're not on the same path anymore. And honestly," she glanced around the table, "I can't keep pretending." It took me a full 5 seconds to realize she was breaking up with me right there, in front of everyone. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She clinked her glass against Adrian's and added, "Consider this my gift. I'm done." Then she stood, smoothed her dress, and walked out. Adrian followed. The waiter froze. Naomi's mouth parted, whispering something like, "Jesus." Nobody moved. I sat there, hands flat on the table, watching the candle flicker. Then, without saying a word, I took out my wallet and handed the waiter my card. "It's fine," I said quietly. The bill came back, $340. I signed my name, left the tip, and walked out into the night. The city air was cold and metallic. My reflection stared back at me from Arcadia's glass doors, just a man alone under the neon. For a second, I thought about chasing her, demanding an explanation. But something in me went still. I realized if I did, I'd be walking into her story, the one she'd already scripted. I went home instead. My apartment felt heavier than usual. The silence pressed against my ears. I sat on the couch, shoes still on, watching the city light crawl across the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't even curse. I just sat there with the taste of burnt sugar and humiliation in my mouth. At midnight, my phone buzzed 17 missed calls from Sabrina. One new text. "Please don't post anything yet. You don't understand." Post what? I hadn't posted anything. That text was the first crack in her perfect story. Curiosity made me open Instagram. Her latest story was still up, a boomerang of champagne glasses clinking. The caption read, "Ending things the classy way, new beginnings." My name wasn't tagged anywhere. That was when it hit me. She'd staged the whole thing. The restaurant, the audience, the performance. It was never about me. It was about controlling the narrative, making sure when people talked about the breakup, it was her version they repeated. I didn't respond. I just sat there in the glow of her story, realizing she wasn't afraid I'd lash out. She was afraid I'd stay silent, because silence can't be spun. The next morning, I did what I always do when my head's a mess. I went to work. Fixing things made sense. People didn't. I spent the day running wires through old walls, thinking about how easy it was to hide things behind them. That night, as I packed up my tools, I decided something. I wasn't going to post. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to watch. And eventually, I'd make sure the truth found its way out, not through shouting, but through proof. I didn't know it yet, but that quiet decision, the one I made with dust on my hands and a wrench in my pocket, was the first spark of everything that came next. The Monday after that dinner, I woke up to sunlight cutting through the blinds like a blade. My phone was still buzzing. Sabrina again. Missed calls, voicemails, texts. The last one just said, "You don't know what you saw." But I did know. I saw her walk out of that restaurant hand in hand with her boss. That image was burned into me. For the next few days, I tried to bury myself in work, pulling cables, mounting breakers, the steady hum of electricity under my hands. Work had rhythm. Pain didn't. But the thing about silence, it starts talking when you're alone too long. On Wednesday, I opened my inbox and saw an unfamiliar address, hr@vesperlane.com. Subject, regarding your recent behavior. My stomach dropped. The email said they'd received a formal complaint alleging harassment and defamation toward one of their employees, Miss Sabrina Hale, and that I should refrain from any contact. I read it 3 times. My hands shook. I hadn't texted, called, or posted a single thing since that night. She'd filed a report anyway. That's when I realized she wasn't just trying to hurt me emotionally. She was protecting her career, painting me as the angry ex to cover whatever she'd done with Adrian. For a minute, I couldn't breathe. The words blurred. I wanted to call her, to scream, "Why are you doing this?" But then I heard my dad's voice in my head. "People like that, son, they fight with smoke. Don't swing at smoke." So I didn't. I printed the email, pinned it to the wall, and told myself, "Fine, if she's going to play this clean, I'll get cleaner." That Friday night, I drove to my parents' house. The porch light still flickered from the loose wire I'd never fixed. My mom opened the door before I could knock. "Mason," she whispered. You look like you haven't slept in a week. Probably because I haven't. Dad was on the couch, watching some rerun, beer in hand. He muted the TV when he saw me. She do it? He asked flatly. I nodded. In front of everyone. He sighed, long and slow. You kept thinking she was playing the same game you were. You were trying to love her. She was trying to win. That line stuck in my head for days. After that, I started noticing things online chatter. Subtle posts from her coworkers. One photo caption read, Power couple energy. She and Adrian, smiling at a gala. Her hand on his chest like she'd never touched anyone else. Underneath, one of her friends commented, finally going public. I scrolled and scrolled until I saw a comment that froze me. Didn't she still have a boyfriend like last week? Sabrina replied with a laughing emoji. Long story. Let's just say some people are better suited for smaller dreams. Smaller dreams. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't even curse. I just stared at the screen until my reflection blurred into hers. That night, Luke came over with beers. He didn't ask permission. I saw the post. He said, You planning to just take it? I'm planning not to give her what she wants. And what's that? A reaction. He raised a brow. You sure silence works against someone who makes noise for a living? I didn't answer, but the question stuck with me. A few days later, an anonymous message hit my Facebook inbox. From unknown. I used to work with Sabrina and Adrian. You should see this. Attached were screenshots, emails flagged as COI, conflict of interest. I didn't understand them at first, but I recognized the names Sabrina Hale and Adrian Cross. The sender didn't leave a name, just an initial, D. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with papers spread out like puzzle pieces. HR notice. Screenshots. Receipts from that dinner. Photos I'd been tagged in and then untagged. Somewhere between the wine bottle and the complaint email, there was a pattern. I could feel it like static before lightning. I just didn't know what it meant yet. I didn't sleep that night. The glow of my laptop painted the walls pale blue as I tried to connect every piece. The email from HR. The gala photo. The mysterious D. My apartment smelled like cold coffee and solder. I wasn't sure if I was uncovering the truth or losing my mind. By 2 a.m., I finally replied, Who are you? 5 minutes later, the answer came. Dana Ruiz. I used to work in legal at Vesper and Lane. Let's just say I left before I could be asked to lie. Attached was a zip file labeled COI, Review, Confidential. Inside were email chains between Sabrina, Adrian, and HR. Most of it was coded in corporate language, internal optics, managing perception, narrative alignment. But one message stood out. Sabrina had written, If Mason gets reactive, it supports our story. We just have to make sure he doesn't look sympathetic. My pulse hammered. So that was the plan. Humiliate me, bait me into an outburst, then spin it as proof that she'd been right to end things. I wasn't the man she painted me to be. I was her prop in a damage control strategy. I wanted to tell someone. But who? Luke would have lost it. My parents would have gone to war. I didn't want noise. I wanted control, so I did what I knew best. I built something. Not with wires this time, with proof. I started a folder. Timeline. Every text, every photo, every receipt, every timestamp. Post-it notes covered my wall. Yellow for work events, pink for messages, blue for anything involving Adrian. As I built the map, the pattern sharpened. There it was, the wine bottle from Arcadia. The serial number in a marketing photo from a Vesper and Lane campaign. A bottle meant for client gifting, not personal use. Violation. I found a hotel receipt Sabrina had left in my glove compartment months ago. The date matched one of her so-called company retreats. When I cross-checked with the gala photo metadata, it lined up perfectly. They hadn't been careful, they just assumed I'd never look. The next week, Dana emailed again. They're worried about an IPO leak. Ethics is touchy right now. If someone were to file a report, it'd get attention. For the first time in weeks, I felt something that wasn't shame. It was clarity. Still, I didn't move yet. I wanted everything airtight. Then Naomi called. I almost didn't pick up. Mason, she said, her voice tight. You didn't hear this from me, okay? But they're nervous. HR's asking questions about that dinner. Why? Someone leaked a clip. Audio. From that night. My stomach turned. A clip? She hesitated. I didn't mean for it to spread. I just recorded parts of the toast for fun, but it picked up her saying something about you. I swallowed. Send it. The file arrived seconds later. I played it once. Then again. Sabrina's voice, clear as day. He'll pay for the dinner. Like always. Public setting equals no scene. Laughter. Then, it's better this way. I can't be seen with someone like that. If I want people to take me seriously. My hand shook. Every word was a nail in the coffin she'd built for herself. Naomi whispered, "She doesn't know I sent this. But, you deserve to know." I can't watch her lie anymore. For a moment, I almost thanked her. Then she added quietly, also, she blamed me once for leaking a deck that Adrian lost. This is kind of payback. I hung up slowly. Everyone in her circle wore masks, even the ones who claimed to help. But truth didn't care who delivered it. That night, I printed everything: emails, audio transcript, receipts. The evidence filled a brown folder so thick it barely closed. I placed it on my desk beside my scarred watch and whispered, "You wanted a story, Sabrina. Here's mine." The next morning, I went to see Mike Reynolds, my old boss. He took one look at me and said, "You finally ready? For what?" "To stop fixing other people's messes and start wiring your own name on the van." He tossed me a business card for a property manager looking for independent contractors. By the end of that month, Cole Electric and Systems was registered. At first, it was just me, one borrowed van, and a logo I stenciled with paint that didn't match. But work came fast. Word of mouth spreads quick in construction. I'd start early, finish late, and sleep like the dead. And for the first time since that night, I felt clean. Until the morning Olivia Grant called. She was from Hamilton Developments, one of the biggest clients in the city. "We're expanding," she said. "We heard good things about your work." When I walked into their glass office for the first time, I caught my reflection in the elevator door. Shirt pressed, hands still scarred. But the man staring back wasn't the one Sabrina left behind. I didn't know it then, but that contract would bring her back into my life right when she thought I was gone for good. The morning, the world folded back on itself, started like any other coffee. Blueprints. A coil of wire in my hand. I was at Hamilton Development's downtown office, running cable through a new conference wing when Olivia, the project manager, called out from the hall. "Mason, quick heads-up, marketing's sending someone to sit in on the renovation meeting. They'll coordinate visuals for client tours. You two will have to work close." "Got it," I said, wiping dust off my hands. An hour later, I walked into the glass-walled conference room. The skyline shimmered behind the floor-to-ceiling windows. A woman stood near the end of the table, back to me, flipping through a tablet. I knew that silhouette before she turned. Sabrina Hale. For a second, everything in me stilled: the hum of the vents, the beat of my pulse. She looked up, and I saw the flicker of shock in her eyes, quickly masked by a tight, professional smile. "Mason," she said softly, voice carefully steady. "It's been a while." I set my folder on the table. "Miss Hale." Olivia smiled, oblivious to the tension. "Oh, perfect, you two already know each other." She gestured toward us. "Sabrina's leading the agency side for the site relaunch. Mason's our systems lead." Sabrina's lips parted. "Right. That'll be nice." The meeting rolled on, slides and numbers. But the air was charged like static. Every time she spoke, her voice trembled at the edges. She avoided my eyes. I didn't. I just took notes. Calm and deliberate. When it ended, Olivia left to take a call. Sabrina lingered by the door. "Mason, can we talk?" I looked at her. "About the wiring or about the lies?" She exhaled shakily. "Please. Not here." I gave her one slow nod. "Tomorrow. River and Oak. Noon." She flinched at the name of the cafe. Maybe she remembered that's where we used to spend lazy Sunday mornings, where she'd pretend to love simple things before she decided simplicity didn't photograph well. The next day, I got there early. It was one of those gray afternoons that smelled like rain. I chose a booth in the corner. My folder sat beside me, a plain brown one, edges worn, heavy with proof. When Sabrina walked in, she looked different. Still polished, but her eyes carried exhaustion she couldn't contour away. She sat across from me, clutching her coffee like it might stop her from shaking. "Mason, thank you for coming," she said quietly. "I know I don't deserve that." "You're right," I said. She winced. "I need your help." That caught me off guard. My help? She nodded quickly. After Adrian got fired, they reopened the investigation. Someone's accusing me of falsifying documents. I didn't, at least not the way they think. I reused templates, that's all. But now it looks like fraud. They're threatening charges. I said nothing. She leaned forward. You still have those screenshots, don't you? The ones Naomi sent you. If you give me copies, I can prove the company knew about me and Adrian long before the policy update. It'll show I wasn't hiding anything. I studied her face. Beneath the panic, I saw the same calculation that had destroyed me. She wasn't sorry. She was cornered. I might have them, I said slowly. But why should I help you? Her voice cracked. Because you're a good man. You don't want to see me destroyed. I smiled faintly. Funny. That's exactly what you said before walking out of Arcadia. She swallowed hard, eyes darting to the folder beside me. Is that it? I nodded. Everything you're afraid of. She reached out. Please, Mason. I slid the folder toward her. Go ahead. Open it. She hesitated, then flipped it open. Inside were printed emails, receipts, screenshots, everything from the night she orchestrated that dinner to the HR complaint she filed. On top sat a single page in my handwriting. Here's what you asked for. You can use it however you want. But you should know I've already sent the full package to ethics and compliance this morning. Her head snapped up. You what? I sent it to Lydia Cho, your ethics lead, along with a timeline, evidence, and a statement clearing my name. You wanted to control the narrative, Sabrina. Now it's out of your hands. She blinked rapidly, voice trembling. You'll regret this. You don't know how these things work. I know exactly how they work, I said evenly. You taught me. She stared at me for a long moment, then slammed the folder shut and stood up. Her chair scraped against the tile. You think this makes you better than me? She hissed. You think anyone will care? I leaned back, calm. No. I just think the truth deserves to exist, even if no one claps for it. Her lips parted, then pressed into a hard line. You'll regret it, she whispered again, but the conviction was gone. She turned and left, heels clicking fast, the door's bell ringing sharp as a gunshot behind her. For a long moment, I just sat there, watching the folder she'd left on the table. My reflection glimmered faintly in the coffee surface. Same hands, same watch, but something had changed. Not revenge, not triumph, just release. Outside, rain began to fall soft, relentless, washing the city clean. I stepped out, the air cool against my skin. And for the first time in a year, I didn't feel small. I felt steady. By the time I got home, my inbox had a new message. From lydia.cho@vesperlane.com. Subject: Ethics Review Follow-up. Mr. Cole, thank you for your documentation. Your information has been forwarded to the executive committee. We will notify you of the outcome. I read it twice. Then I poured myself a glass of water and looked at the scarred face of my watch, the same one that caught the light the night she broke me. This time, it gleamed. And somewhere across town, I imagined her sitting in her corner office, waiting for an email she couldn't control. The next few days felt like standing in the eye of a quiet storm. No more texts, no more calls, just the soft buzz of my phone lighting up with notifications I didn't open. 3 nights after the meeting at River and Oak, an unknown number called. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally listened, Sabrina's voice cracked through the static. Mason, please. Whatever you sent, it's tearing everything apart. Adrian's gone. HR's involved. They're talking about legal action. Please just stop. You've made your point. She paused, sobbing quietly. You don't understand. I never meant to ruin you. I just panicked. I needed people to see me a certain way. Please call me back. I didn't, because she was wrong. I wasn't trying to ruin her. I was simply removing the mask she built her world on. That weekend, I went back to my workshop. The smell of paint and metal filled the air. My van sat under the flickering bulb, the words COLE electric and systems drying in fresh blue across the side. I ran my hand over the letters, feeling the texture of my own name. This was mine. Built without shortcuts, without manipulation, without lies. When Monday came, the city woke up to something new. Quiet panic at Vesper and Lane. Rumors of an internal ethics review spread across LinkedIn like wildfire. Someone had leaked that Adrian Cross had resigned. Sabrina Hale was under investigation for misconduct. I didn't need confirmation to know Lydia had followed through. The truth was moving on its own now. Luke called that night. "Man, tell me this isn't you," he said, half laughing, half in awe. I smiled faintly. I didn't post a thing. Then why's everyone in that fancy agency suddenly looking for new jobs? Guess they built their tower on bad wiring, I said. He laughed. That's poetic, bro. But it wasn't poetry, it was balance. Because revenge, when done right, isn't loud. It's methodical. It's every lie collapsing under its own weight. Before bed, I opened my email one last time. A short message from Lydia Cho sat at the top. "Mr. Cole, your name has been cleared. The investigation concludes this week. We appreciate your professionalism throughout this process." I stared at the screen, a small, cold smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. They thought they'd buried me under their story. But all they really did was hand me the match. He chose to take his revenge through success. But not everyone gets that kind of justice. Our next story begins with someone who couldn't wait for karma and decided to deliver it themselves. My name is Noah Grant. I'm 36 years old, and last Christmas, my mother handed out matching watches to everyone at the table except my 8-year-old son. She smiled, holding the last box above the lights of the tree, and said, "Not for him. Maybe next year if he learns some manners." The room went still. My son forced a grin so small it broke something in me. I didn't shout. I just stood, pushed my chair back, and walked out into the snow. But what they didn't know was that moment was only the beginning. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by your own family. Because what happened that night wasn't just a dinner gone wrong. It was the moment I realized how far a mother will go to keep control, even if it means breaking her own child to do it. I grew up in a house where silence was considered respect and appearances were the only language of love. My mother, Valerie Grant, believed that a clean floor and a perfect smile were signs of moral superiority. My father, Peter, spent most evenings hiding behind the Denver Post, nodding to whatever my mother declared as truth. Our house on Juniper Lane was the kind that neighbors pointed at during Christmas drives, white lights strung perfectly, wreaths measured and centered, not a bulb out of place. From the outside, it looked like happiness. Inside, it smelled like lemon polish and quiet disappointment. My younger sister, Sloane, was the golden child. She didn't earn it. She simply fit my mother's idea of what perfection should look like: blonde hair, easy charm, and a knack for turning every failure into something adorable. When she burned a batch of muffins at 12, Mom laughed and called it rustic. When I brought home straight A's, Mom said, "That's expected." I learned early that love in our house came with conditions. There was one night, when I was 10, that still claws its way back into my dreams. My birthday had fallen on the same weekend. Sloan received a scholarship for a summer art camp. Mom decided we'd celebrate both to save time. She baked a single cake with both our names, though you'd barely notice mine: tiny letters in blue frosting curling into the corner, while Sloane's name took up the entire top in elegant red script. When the candles were lit, everyone sang to her. I remember looking around, wondering if anyone would notice. Dad clapped along. Mom smiled for the camera. I swallowed it down with a bite of too sweet icing. That night, she uploaded the photo to her family newsletter, captioning it, "So proud of my creative daughter." And of course, Noah too. That line, "and of course, Noah too," stuck like a splinter. Years later, I realized that was her style, praise wrapped in erasure. When I started high school, I joined the debate team. I was good at it: calm, logical, steady under pressure. We won regionals. Mom didn't come. Sloan had a piano recital that same night. "You understand," she said over the phone. "Your sister's recital is a once-in-a-lifetime thing." The next morning, she left a note on the counter. "Proud of you, sweetheart. Wish I could have seen it." She'd signed it with a little heart. I crumpled it and threw it away. I didn't know it back then, but those small absences were shaping me into someone who mistook silence for dignity. When I turned 21, I left home with a single suitcase and an old Toyota that coughed more than it ran. I put myself through college working nights at a freight warehouse. Every check felt like proof I didn't need her validation. Then I met Harper. She was interning for a logistics firm where I was a floor manager. While everyone else treated the night shift like punishment, she brought coffee for the whole crew and stayed until the last truck left the dock. She was warmth in a world that measured people by performance. Our first date wasn't romantic by normal standards. We sat in her car outside a diner, eating fries from the same basket while snow fell on the windshield. But it was the first time I felt seen. When we got married 3 years later, Mom insisted on hosting the ceremony in her backyard. She said it would be classy and elegant. What it became was her show. Every flower arrangement, every song, even Harper's dress had to pass her approval. Harper handled it with grace. I could see the quiet rage in her eyes when Mom gave a speech that sounded more like a resume of her own parenting achievements. After the reception, Harper whispered, "If we ever have a kid, we're keeping them far from this circus." We both laughed, but somewhere deep inside, I knew she was serious. Aiden was born 4 years later on a cold February morning. When the nurse placed him in Harper's arms, something inside me shifted. He had her eyes and my quiet. I remember promising, silently, "You'll never feel invisible the way I did." For the first few years, I kept that promise easily. We built a small life, modest house. Saturday pancakes, bedtime stories. Mom visited occasionally, always with gifts that came with invisible strings. When she saw our mismatched kitchen chairs, she said, "Charming, but maybe you should let me redecorate. I'll make it look like a real home." We said no. That was the first time she looked at Harper with that icy half-smile that meant, "You've crossed me." Still, we tried to keep peace. Thanksgiving, birthdays, the occasional Sunday dinner. For a while, I thought maybe she'd mellowed with age. But the old patterns just hid behind new manners. The first crack came when Aiden was 5. Mom had started comparing him to Sloane's son, Lucas, who was only a year older but already in advanced soccer. She'd say things like, "Look at him, so athletic. Maybe Aiden should try running around more instead of those little drawings." Aiden would lower his head and pretend not to hear. I'd bite my tongue because that's what years with Valerie had taught me to endure for the sake of appearances. One afternoon, after a family brunch, Harper found Aiden in his room, ripping up one of his sketches. When she asked why, he said, "Grandma said drawings for kids who don't like real sports." Harper told me that night while we were washing dishes. "She's starting again," she said quietly. I nodded, knowing exactly what she meant. I didn't know it then, but that was the seed of everything that would come next. The following years passed like a long winter thaw, slow, deceptive, full of moments that almost felt warm before the frost returned. Valerie began inviting us to her place more often once Sloane and Brandon had their second child. She said she wanted family unity, but what she really wanted was an audience. Her house in Cherry Creek looked like it had been lifted from a design magazine: crystal chandeliers, white marble counters, a scent of citrus and control. Every visit felt like stepping into a performance. Harper once whispered, "She hosts like she's running for office." Valerie would greet us with air kisses and then immediately turn her focus to Sloane's family. Lucas just made captain of his team. She'd beam, resting a manicured hand on his shoulder. "And Sloane's getting promoted again, she's unstoppable." Then, with that same sweet voice sharpened by sugar, she'd glance at me. "Still at the same company, Noah?" "Still." I'd answer. She'd smile. "Consistency is good. Some people just aren't meant for the spotlight." It wasn't even the words, it was the way she said them, like she was dropping pearls into poison. Aiden always sat quietly beside me during these dinners. He was shy but observant, always sketching something on the corner of a napkin. One night, Valerie leaned over and said, "Darling, what are you drawing?" "A dragon," he said softly. She tilted her head. "Maybe draw something real next time." Everyone laughed politely. Everyone except Harper. That night, as we were leaving, she stopped on the porch, turned to me, and said, "If she ever talks to him like that again, I'm walking out." I should have supported her right then. Instead, I said the same cowardly thing I'd heard my father say my whole childhood. "Let's just not make a scene." A week later, my father called. His voice was lower than usual, like he was speaking from another life. "Your mother means well," he said. "Does she?" I asked. He sighed. "She just doesn't know when to stop performing. She's always been like this." "You mean she's always been cruel?" He went quiet. Then, "You know how she gets if you challenge her." That was his mantra. "You know how she gets." Translation: stay quiet. Let her win. By the time Aiden turned 7, Valerie had turned favoritism into theater. Christmas gifts stacked taller for Lucas, compliments served like confetti for Sloane. For us, polite nods and thin smiles. But I kept coming back. I told myself it was for Aiden that a child should know his grandmother. In truth, I was still that 10-year-old boy waiting for her to notice me. Then came the dinner, the one that would burn everything down. It was a snowy evening, 2 days before Christmas. Harper and I had argued in the car about whether we should even go. Just one dinner, she said, gripping my arm. For Aiden, the Grant house glowed like a jewelry box when we arrived. Warm light, cinnamon candles, laughter spilling from the living room. Valerie hugged us at the door as if nothing had ever gone wrong. Her perfume, jasmine, and champagne wrapped around me like static. She'd already seated Sloane's family by the fireplace, the good seats. We were placed at the far end, next to a chair missing its cushion. Harper gave me a small, weary smile. Classic Valerie. Dinner started fine. Valerie bragged about Lucas's new soccer trophy. Sloane showed off a bracelet, another surprise gift from Mom. Harper tried to steer the conversation to lighter topics, vacations, books, movies, but Valerie had only one orbit: Sloane, Lucas, and herself. Aiden poked at his peas, quiet but listening. I caught him tracing circles on the tablecloth with his finger, his way of staying calm. Then came the tradition, the matching gifts. Every year, Valerie handed out identical presents to symbolize family unity. Last year it was monogram blankets, before that, engraved mugs. This time, the boxes were small and heavy. Matching watches, she announced, smiling wide. For my family. The room clapped. Sloane tore open hers first, gold shimmer flashing under the chandelier. Valerie handed one to Brandon, one to Peter, one to Harper, one to me. Then she stopped. She looked at Aiden, smiled thinly, and said, "Oh, not for him." At first, I thought I'd misheard. "What?" I asked. Valerie laughed lightly. "He doesn't deserve one. Maybe next year if he learns some manners." The room froze. Aiden's fork slipped from his hand. He looked at her, then at me, then down at his plate. He forced a small, crooked smile. "It's okay, Dad. I don't even like watches." His voice cracked on the last word. I felt my chest tighten. My hands went cold. Harper's eyes filled with disbelief. "Valerie," she started, but I squeezed her hand under the table. "Mom," I said quietly. "He's 8." She waved me off. "Jake, please," then caught herself. "Noah, don't start. He was rude to me earlier. Remember? Barely said hello. He's shy." She shrugged. "Well, maybe he could learn from Lucas. Such a polite young man." Sloane giggled, trying to make it light. No one else laughed. Aiden pushed food around his plate, pretending to eat. The room filled with the crinkle of wrapping paper, the clinking of silverware, the hum of fake joy. I sat there, my pulse hammering in my ears, memorizing every smirk and every look that told me what I already knew. My mother hadn't changed. When dessert came, she made a show of pulling out a special box. "For Lucas," she said sweetly, "because he's been such a good boy this year." He opened it, a brand new tablet gleaming under the light. Harper's legs started bouncing under the table. A silent storm. Aiden froze, eyes locked on that tablet. "Don't look so serious, Noah," Valerie said, noticing. "You know I love all my grandchildren. Some just make it easier to show." That was when something in me snapped, but quietly. I didn't shout. I didn't curse. I just stood. The chair scraped across the hardwood, a sound sharp enough to slice through her perfect evening. "We're done here," I said. Valerie's smile flickered. "Don't be dramatic. It's Christmas." I didn't answer. Harper rose, took Aiden's hand, and we left. Outside, the cold hit my face like a slap. The snow was still falling, soft and relentless, covering everything in silence. I drove home without a word. Aiden fell asleep in the backseat, clutching the sketchbook he'd brought to show his grandma, the one she'd never asked to see. When we got home, I laid him in bed. Harper stood at the door, whispering, "She crossed a line tonight." I nodded. "And she's going to pretend it never happened." She was right. Hours later, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "You still owe me for dinner. And you made a scene for no reason." I stared at it for a long time, then laughed a low, bitter sound that didn't feel like mine. That was the moment something inside me shifted from disbelief to resolve. I didn't know it yet, but that night wasn't an ending. It was the start of a quiet war I was finally ready to fight. The morning after that dinner, the house felt unnaturally quiet. Snowlight poured through the blinds, soft and pale, and for a moment, everything looked peaceful until I saw the sketchbook on the counter. Aiden had drawn a Christmas tree, ornaments scattered unevenly, and off to one side, a tiny figure sitting alone. No presents, no smile. I closed the book and felt something twist inside me. When Harper came into the kitchen, she didn't need to ask what I was looking at. He woke up early, she said, told me he had a bad dream, then went back to sleep. We both knew it wasn't a dream. It was memory trying to settle in. By noon, Valerie had already posted her version of the night, a perfect photo of everyone smiling around the table, captioned, "Even with a little drama, family is everything. So grateful for my blessings." The comments poured in. "Looks beautiful. You're such an inspiration, Valerie. Perfect family." Harper stared at the screen. "She's rewriting the story already." "She's always been the author," I said. That afternoon, Sloane called. I almost didn't pick up. "Noah, Mom's really upset," she began, her tone sugar with edges. "She said you just stormed out." "I walked out." I corrected. "Same thing. She humiliated my son in front of everyone." Sloane sighed. That performative exhale that meant she was pretending patience. "Oh, come on. It wasn't that bad. She just didn't have an extra gift. She told him he didn't deserve one." Silence. Then, "Well, maybe she meant he should say hello properly next time." I laughed, not from humor, but disbelief. "He's 8. You're too sensitive, Noah. You always have been." "Oh." I could almost hear Mom through her voice, same tone, same denial. "Right," I said flatly. "Tell her I said thanks for dinner." Then I hung up. By evening, Harper's phone buzzed. It was a text from Valerie. "Family shouldn't hold grudges. I was just teaching Aiden a lesson. You used to act out too, and you turned out fine." Harper read it aloud. Her voice trembled. "She thinks this is normal." I nodded slowly. "That's what scares me." Days turned into weeks. We didn't speak to her. Aiden stopped mentioning his grandmother entirely. He still drew every day, but now it was dragons and mountains, faraway castles, worlds where people couldn't hurt him. Then one afternoon in January, an email arrived from Aiden's school. Subject line: concern regarding Aiden's emotional well-being. My stomach dropped. I read the message twice. "Mr. and Mrs. Grant, we received a call from a family member expressing concern that Aiden may be struggling emotionally due to recent family conflict. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss further." A family member. There was only one person it could be. By the time I got home, Harper was pacing the kitchen, phone in hand. "She called the school," she said. "She told them we're neglecting him." I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. She made it sound like we're unfit parents. The next morning, we sat across from Miss Patel, the school counselor. The office smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. She spoke in that gentle tone professionals use when they're trying not to escalate things. "It's not uncommon for grandparents to reach out when they feel concerned," she said. "We just have to follow up." Harper's hands were shaking in her lap. "Concerned?" she repeated. "She humiliated him in front of everyone. We're protecting him." Miss Patel nodded. "I understand, but we're required to check in." When we stepped outside afterward, the wind cut through us. Harper leaned against the car, eyes glossy. "She's trying to make us look like we're crazy. She's trying to regain control," I said. The next day, Aiden came home quiet. I asked how school was. He shrugged. "Grandma called me today," he said softly. My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "She talked to my teacher in the hallway. She said she was worried about me. She said I looked sad." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I'm fine," he said, frowning. "But she told my teacher she's just trying to help." He looked up at me, confused. "Did I make you and Mom look bad?" That question gutted me. I knelt down and took his hands. "Hey, no. You did nothing wrong, okay? None of this is your fault." He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. That night, I called Valerie. She picked up on the second ring, sounding almost cheerful. "Noah, finally. I've been meaning to check in. Why did you call the school?" "Excuse me? Don't play dumb. You told them Aiden was neglected." She gave that little laugh I knew too well, the one she used when she thought she was in control. "I never said that. I just told them I was worried. You've been avoiding me." And he seemed withdrawn. "Withdrawn because of you." "Oh, Noah." She sighed. You're so defensive. I'm just trying to make sure my grandson's okay. Maybe you should thank me. My pulse thudded in my ears. You embarrassed him. You made him afraid. Don't exaggerate, she snapped. You've always been ungrateful. Everything I do is for this family. For your image, I said. Silence. Then a cold edge crept into her voice. Keep talking like that and you'll regret it. I hung up. That was the first time I realized she wasn't just toxic. She was dangerous. The next few days blurred into unease. Every time my phone buzzed, my chest tightened. Harper started saving every message, every voicemail, like we were building a shield out of evidence. We didn't know it yet, but Valerie was just getting started. 2 weeks later, the escalation came wrapped in gold paper. It was Aiden's birthday. We threw a small party, just his classmates, a dinosaur cake, and a handful of neighbors. He was laughing again, louder than I'd heard in weeks. For a few hours, it felt like we'd escaped. Then, right as we started cleaning up, my phone buzzed. A message from Valerie. Dropped off a gift for Aiden at your door. Don't say I never do anything for him. Harper froze when she saw it. Do we even open it? We'll wait until the guests leave, I said. Later that evening, when the last kid had gone home, Aiden tugged at the shiny gold ribbon. Can I? I hesitated, then nodded. Inside was a sleek smartwatch, the same model she'd given everyone else at Christmas. But taped to the box was a handwritten note in Valerie's perfect cursive. For my favorite grandson. Maybe now you've earned it. The room fell silent. Harper's hand flew to her mouth. She called me her favorite, Aiden whispered, staring at the note. Does that mean she's not mad anymore? My throat felt like sandpaper. Maybe she just wants to make things right, buddy. But inside, I knew better. That night, when he went to bed, I turned the watch over in my hands. It wasn't just a gift, it was bait. The setup process showed the device already connected to an account under Valerie's name. She had access to location tracking, message alerts, everything. Harper, I called softly. She's tracking him. Her face went pale. What? She set up family locator. She can see where he is, all the time. Harper took the watch like it was something toxic. She's spying on her own grandson. We reset it, disabled the sharing, took screenshots for proof. But that night, sleep didn't come. Every creak in the house felt like another line she'd crossed. 3 days later, the real bomb dropped. An envelope from Denver County Court. Valerie Grant versus Noah and Harper Grant petition for grandparent visitation rights. Harper read it twice, hands trembling. She's suing us. She's actually. Yeah, I said quietly. She's doing it. The petition was polished, professional, dripping with self-righteous phrasing. In the best interest of the child. Previously significant relationship. Ongoing emotional concern. Harper paced the kitchen. We didn't even say she couldn't see him forever. We just needed space. She doesn't want space, I said. She wants control. We found a lawyer, Miranda Cole. A calm woman with sharp eyes who didn't waste time on sympathy. She spread the paperwork across her desk and said, she's framing this as emotional alienation. We'll need proof of her interference, texts, photos, anything showing manipulation. We gave her everything. But Valerie wasn't done performing. 2 weeks after filing, Child Protective Services knocked on our door. The agent, polite but firm, said they'd received an anonymous report claiming emotional neglect and instability at home. Harper looked like she might collapse. They checked Aiden's room, the fridge, even his drawings pinned on the wall. The agent asked the standard questions. Does he have his own bed? Does he ever go without meals? Does he seem withdrawn? When they finally left, Harper sank to the floor. She's trying to ruin us legally. She's trying to make us look unstable, I said. If she can't win in court, she'll destroy our credibility first. The next morning, a new kind of message arrived. The school secretary called, confused. Mr. Grant, we received letters addressed to Aiden. From his grandmother. We drove straight there. Miss Patel handed us a small stack, 3 envelopes with Aiden's name in looping handwriting. Inside were messages that made my blood run cold. Grandma misses you. Daddy doesn't want us to be a family. If you love me, draw me a picture. Emotional blackmail in crayon form. Miranda's eyes lit up when we showed her. This is gold, she said. It's coercion directed at a minor. The court won't like this. Meanwhile, Sloan called again. Noah, Mom's devastated. You're turning her into a villain. She's doing that herself, I said. You're overreacting. Do you even know how much she's helped us? She paid for Lucas's tuition, for our car. She stopped mid-sentence. Yeah, I said quietly. I do know. That's why you're defending her. Sloane's voice cracked. You always twist things. I hung up. That night, Harper sat beside me at the kitchen table, both of us surrounded by printed screenshots, phone logs, and letters. This feels endless, she whispered. It won't be, I said. But I'm done reacting. From now on, we play her game smarter. A week later, Dad called out of nowhere. His voice was low, uneasy. Noah, your mother's gone too far this time. What do you mean? She's been calling relatives, saying you've been having money problems, that you're unstable. I wanted you to know before it spreads. I exhaled slowly. Thanks for the warning. He paused. She's not well, son. She's always been this way, Dad. You just didn't want to see it. He didn't answer. But when I hung up, I knew something had shifted. The silent bystander in our family drama was starting to move. That night, as I tucked Aiden into bed, he looked up at me and whispered, Dad, do you think Grandma just doesn't like me? The question sliced through me cleaner than any courtroom insult ever could. I forced a smile. She loves you, buddy. She just doesn't know how to show it. He nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. When he fell asleep, I sat in the dark, staring at his drawings taped to the wall nights. Dragons, fortresses, defenders. I made myself a promise then. No more silence. No more giving her the stage. The next act would be mine. The day of the hearing came with a kind of cold that felt personal. The Denver courthouse stood like a gray monument under the snow. Glass doors smudged with the ghosts of too many families who'd stood there before us. Harper squeezed my hand as we walked in. Whatever happens, she whispered, we know who we are. Inside, Valerie was already waiting, cream-colored suit, pearls, and that same rehearsed smile she'd worn my entire life. Beside her sat Sloane, dressed to match, lips pressed into a line that said she was terrified but determined to look composed. When she saw us, Valerie's smile widened. Noah, she said softly, as if we were meeting for brunch. You look tired. Court must be stressful for you. Miranda leaned close to me and whispered, let her perform. Every word she says is a gift. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s with the kind of steady gaze that made you sit up straighter. We're here regarding the petition for visitation rights filed by Mrs. Valerie Grant. She began. Valerie's lawyer, a sleek man with too perfect hair, stood first. Your Honor, my client is simply a devoted grandmother, seeking a relationship with her grandson. She's been unfairly cut off due to misunderstandings and misplaced anger. He went on, painting Valerie as a saint in pearls, a benevolent matriarch deeply invested in her family's well-being. He even showed photos, Christmas dinners, smiling faces, all curated from her social media. To anyone who didn't know better, it looked idyllic. When he sat down, Miranda stood, calm and deliberate. Your Honor, we don't dispute that Mrs. Grant wants contact with her grandson. The issue is how she's pursued it. She clicked the remote. The first photo appeared on the monitor, a screenshot of Valerie's Facebook post from Christmas. Even with a little drama, family is everything. Then another image. The smartwatch settings page. Valerie's account listed as the family organizer. Location tracking active. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Mrs. Grant, Miranda continued, set up this device for an 8-year-old child without parental consent. She connected it to her own tracking account. When confronted, she dismissed it as just keeping an eye on him. Valerie shot up. That's ridiculous. I was worried about his safety. The judge lifted a hand. Mrs. Grant, you'll have a chance to speak. Miranda didn't pause. Concern, Your Honor, is one thing. Invasive surveillance and manipulation are another. Next came the letters, photos of the envelopes, the handwriting clear. Miranda read one aloud. Grandma misses you. Daddy doesn't want us to be a family. If you love me, draw me a picture. Valerie's lawyer objected, but the judge motioned for him to sit. The silence that followed was the heaviest thing I'd ever felt. Then Miranda said, and finally, the anonymous report to Child Protective Services, filed weeks after Mrs. Grant, was asked to respect boundaries. The language in the report matches phrasing from Mrs. Grant's emails to my client, almost word for word. The judge's expression shifted, still professional, but colder now. Your Honor, Miranda concluded, this isn't about love. It's about control. Valerie stood abruptly. That's not true. I'm a good mother. Ask anyone. My son has always been ungrateful. Her voice cracked. For the first time, she looked less like a hostess and more like someone cornered. And then came the twist I didn't see coming. From the back row, my father stood. Peter Grant. He walked to the front, holding a worn brown folder. Your Honor, he said quietly, I have something to submit. Miranda looked at me in surprise. Inside the folder were old notes, pages yellowed with time, each dated and labeled. My father's handwriting, meticulous and restrained. I started keeping these years ago, he said. Times and dates when Valerie said or did things that didn't sit right. I stayed quiet too long. I thought it was keeping the peace. He looked at me, then his eyes tired but clear. I'm sorry, son. The judge skimmed a few pages. Her face didn't change, but I saw it in her eyes. Recognition. Understanding. Valerie's lips parted. Peter, how dare you? But he didn't respond. He just walked back to his seat and sat down, hands folded. Miranda pressed the advantage. Your Honor, this confirms a long-standing pattern of psychological control, not only toward our client, but his entire family. Then came the second twist. Miranda opened another folder. Bank statements, she said. Mrs. Grant's accounts show regular transfers to her daughter, Sloan Miller, covering a car purchase, tuition, and various family gifts. Each transaction occurred within days of Mrs. Grant publicly disparaging my client online. Sloan went pale. That's not. Mrs. Miller, Miranda interrupted smoothly. Do you deny accepting those funds? My mom said they were gifts. The judge glanced at Valerie. It appears your generosity has timing. Valerie's composure shattered. Their family. I was helping her. And punishing him, Miranda said. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the heating vents. Finally, the judge spoke. Her tone was even, deliberate. Mrs. Grant, this court finds a pattern of interference and coercion inconsistent with the child's best interests. Your petition is denied. Furthermore, any direct contact with the minor or his school will require prior written consent from his parents. Continued interference may result in a restraining order. Valerie didn't move. Her face was blank, like she couldn't compute what had just happened. When the gavel fell, it sounded like a door closing on decades. Outside the courthouse, the air was biting and bright. Harper turned to me, tears in her eyes, not from sadness but relief. It's over, she whispered. Not quite, I said, looking back at the gray building. But she just lost her stage. Behind us, through the glass doors, I caught one last glimpse of my mother. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shouting. She was staring straight ahead, her reflection fractured in the glass. For the first time in my life, I saw what she looked like without control. And it was almost small. For weeks after the hearing, the world went quiet in a way that felt unnatural. No calls, no texts, no posts from Valerie, just silence, thick, waiting, suspicious. Harper thought it was peace. Maybe she finally got the message, she said one night as we put Aiden to bed. Maybe, I replied, but I didn't believe it. Valerie Grant never stopped. She only paused to reload. It was mid-April when the call came. An unfamiliar number, calm voice. Mr. Grant, this is Lydia, from Willow Ridge Assisted Living. Your mother is a resident here. She listed you as her emergency contact. There's an issue with her account. I felt my stomach tighten. What kind of issue? She's several months behind on payments. If the balance isn't settled, we may have to reevaluate her stay. For a moment, I just listened to the static hum between us. The woman sounded kind, maybe even apologetic. I understand, I said finally. Thank you for letting me know. When I told Harper, she set her mug down slowly. You're not actually considering. I don't know yet, I said. But maybe this is the universe evening the score. 2 days later, I received an email from Valerie herself. The subject line, please help me. Her message was desperate, almost theatrical. Noah, I know you're angry, but I'm in trouble. They say I might be evicted. Your sister can't help right now. Please don't let them throw me out. I'm sorry for everything. Sorry for everything. 3 words too late. Harper read it over my shoulder. You're not going to send her money, are you? Not exactly, I said. The next morning, I called Willow Ridge again this time, asking to speak with the administrator. I requested her full balance, then made a proposal. I'd like to make a restricted donation, I said. It'll cover 1 year of standard care, nothing extravagant. But in exchange, the facility's legal team drafts an agreement. She can't contact me, my wife, or my son ever again. No calls, no letters, nothing. There was a long pause on the other end. We can arrange that, the administrator said quietly. If she signs, it'll be binding. Good, I said. Send it to her. That night, as I looked out at the Denver skyline, snow drifting like ash, I realized I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted the noise to stop. And for the first time, I had found a way to silence her without ever raising my voice. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, you're not alone. Sometimes, walking away isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing you'll ever do. I used to think revenge meant shouting louder, proving a point. But real revenge? It's peace. It's silence. It's living your life untouched by the people who tried to break you. So if you're still carrying that kind of pain, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Because stories like mine don't end with hate. They end with freedom. And trust me, this story isn't over.